My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave DeBow. And have you ever wondered how ordinary people can buy a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio in just a few years without using any of their own money? Well, today my guests, Mychele and Patrick Bisson from PMBI Holdings, have done just that, and they're here to share their secrets on creative financing of RV parks and achieving phenomenal success in the world of real estate investing. Mychele, Patrick, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you.
So we're going to touch on a bunch of this stuff, creative financing and all that stuff, RV parks, but how did you get started in real estate? What was the first book, seminar thing that was like, maybe we should do something in this real estate game?
Well, Mychele tells the story pretty well, so I'll let you do it. So.
We had some friends. Well, I had a friend who actually had invested in real estate for years, had moved off to Tennessee. They retired, and I knew that he was in the Air Force. I couldn't figure out how they were traveling all over the world, and so they decided to come back to Colorado, touched base with us, and I was like, well, why don't you guys come over for dinner? So they came over for dinner, and they met my husband, who was my new husband at the time. Well, actually, we were married for a few years, but it was the first time they were meeting him. They were sitting at the table telling us about all of these houses that they were looking at while they were home, and how they were just checking up on all the rentals, and they kept saying cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. And so he finally was like, what are you talking about? Like, let's explore this whole idea. And so the guy sat down with him and showed him his spreadsheet on all of his rentals and how much they make. And he was like, yeah, we've been doing it for years. We're retired now. This is how we did it early. And now we just travel the world. And so had great dinner with them. They left. That night, he tells me, he's like, we could do that. And I was like, yeah, we could totally do that. So I sent a message off to a real estate agent that I didn't know, was like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want to do with it. If you have anything, can you please let me know? So she was like, let's have a meeting Friday morning. And I was like, great, let's do that. So Friday morning comes along. He goes off to play golf. She calls me up and she said, I've got this listing that's about to go live. I want you to come look at it. I know we have a meeting this afternoon, but why don't you come early? So I go to see the house, and I'm in it for about 15, 20 minutes, walk back out, and I said, perfect, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I put in an offer. So I get in the car and I realized that he was not a part of that. And so I called him up, and I was like, I kept calling and texting him, and he wasn't answering his phone because he's in the middle of a golf tournament. Mm-hmm. And so finally he calls me back and he's like, is everything okay? What happened? And I said, hey, we bought a house. It's going to be fine. We'll talk about it later. And I just hung up.
So that's how it started.
Yeah.
Soon after that, I mean, we were doing conventional loans. So we ended up buying, and there was a lot of homes available. And the factor was that we were able to put a renter in there the minute we closed. Like right. Literally, the day we closed, we had a renter. So we knew that the system was working for us. We started doing them conventionally, so getting 20% down. We had some savings we put towards that, but one led to 2, 3, 4, and then by the end of the year we had 5 homes. Plus, we had put a deposit on a house that was being built by one of the largest builder in Colorado Springs. So we were excited about that, and we had a renter ready for that too. So we're like, okay, where do we go? But then we got stopped overall because the banks would be like, no, you're maxed out. Like, your credit went from like 840 down to like 7 something now.
Mm-hmm.
But
and our TTI was getting too high.
Yeah. So we're kind of stuck. So we had to figure out a way to do creative financing. And so it took us a little bit, but we did purchase a land in Arizona that was rated resort. So it was through one of our mortgage broker that introduced it to us. He said, hey, there's a great deal. Mm-hmm. So we did that.
We actually went in, we purchased it, we put in a cash offer. And this is when we got introduced to having actually partners, because we had never had partners before, but we realized we put in this offer and we're $100,000 short.
Mm.
And so we turned around and we went back to the guy who brought it to us and we were like, hey, do you want to partner on it and give us 100 grand and we'll give you a percentage? And so he was like, yeah, I'm completely in for that. And so we ended up purchasing the land. We then took our portfolio because now we have this resort zone land that we're not sure what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
It's outside of one of the most popular golf courses in America. It's in an amazing spot. And we're like, we've got this great opportunity to do something amazing. And we don't know how we're going to do it. Like, how do we get the money? So we took our portfolio of single family homes and we went to our local bank and we were like, we would like to build a resort on this land. And usually banks don't loan outside of the state or outside of their own city because it's a local bank.
Mhm.
But the owner of the bank and their manager go to Scottsdale all the time and they love the area. So they were like, yeah, we're completely ready to do this with you. So thankfully they loaned us a construction loan of what, 2.4 million.
Yep.
So we got this construction loan for 2.4 million. Our skin in the game was actually just the land.
Mm.
And we built this resort. So
So it took a little bit.
it took about almost 2 years.
Mhm.
We went right through COVID with it. So it was kind of a weird moment where everything raised, prices were raising, labor had to be stopped, people couldn't work. So we kind of had this weird gap of nothing going on because of everything. So that kind of threw us for a loop, but we got through it. And the day that we opened up the doors for business, actually, he decided that he was ready to quit his job. And
So we made enough cash flow at that point, going back to the cash flow story, is all of our properties were cash flowing to pay themselves, but also to give us an amount of money per property that would cover us for all of our expenses. And then the villas that we built, once they go live, that replace my W-2 salary at 100% and
Mhm.
more. So at that point, I looked at it and said, okay, there's an opportunity. And so I'm no longer going to be doing what I was doing. And I worked for 27 years in the beer, wine, and spirits industry,
Mhm.
and worked on brands and developing brands. So I'm like, why don't we just focus on us and develop our own brand? And that's what we did. So we joined.
it was what,
Yeah,
2 days after, because he was like, hey, I want you to watch this creative financing video with, actually it was Pace Morby. And I was watching it. And again, I was like, oh, I can totally do that. Let's do that. So we joined his group actually and started learning how to do creative financing, learning about taking over somebody else's loan, to learning about how the contracts work with seller financing, bringing in private money, things like that. And these were all things that I didn't realize existed. I didn't know that you were allowed to take over somebody else's loan. Apparently it's been around since the 80s.
Yeah.
But it was just an interesting way. I felt like it was just the key that we were looking for to escalate everything that we were doing.
Yep.
So when we jumped in, we signed up, started plugging into the community, started learning all the different ways that people do this, and realized very quickly that there was no way we could go back to single family homes. We needed to go to something larger that had a cash flow right away.
We wanted to scale, right? So we wanted to bring all of our portfolio, and we had a resort, so that was great. But we said, okay, well, we need multifamily, or we need RV. Well, RV parks came later, but we need volume. And what I said to Mychele is like, let's double our doors by the end of the year. And that was in October of 23. And she goes,
Okay.
okay. She didn't say okay. So we looked at that. Then we joined, we looked at ways to scale, and we didn't have any experience in multifamily. So we did join Multifamily Mindset with Tyler Devereaux. And what a ride this has been with them. Great people. Again, you buy into the program, you work through, you learn, and then you get in touch with bigger investors. I mean, we connected with all kinds of investors during, again, that community, that group. And we attended a conference called Peak Partnership. So that was another place where so many investors and so many people wanted to do what we're doing were there. So that was a big win there. During that entire time, as we were taking those courses and learning, we actually started looking, because we wanted to double our doors. So we looked at mobile home parks. We looked at storage unit. I said, how can I get more cash flow?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was this RV park that was fed in through the community on sub two. And that's how we ended up looking at RV parks and underwriting it, because now I was really learning and I was actually comfortable in underwriting. And I love doing that right now. And just figured out the numbers, and we ended up with an RV park and closed on December 28th of 23. And that was our, we doubled our doors. Actually more than that, but that was
Well,
the goal.
I think the key was is that we learned about the multifamily, and then we learned about the creative finance, and we wanted to kind of find a way that they could meld together.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were like, we find benefits to both realms where we want to do this many units in one shot with cash flow and everything else and the value adds and how we can make it work. But we also needed to find a way that we could do it without taking any money out of our own pocket, because
Mm-hmm.
he had decided to leave his job at that point. And so now we were kind of on we don't know how this is going to look over the next year or two. So let's just make sure that we're trying to be as smart as we can.
Well, it's interesting too, because some people quit too early and they're no longer financeable, and then they have to struggle to raise money right out the gate. So you kind of maxed out and you're like, okay, there's not much value I'm getting from being here other than, the paycheck or whatever that you're getting from the W-2, which is great, but at the same time, that wasn't part of like the vision forward. So you're like, okay, I don't really need the financing. We're gonna have to finance everything from here on out anyhow with other people's money. So um, when you look at the RV park stuff, is this are these RV parks you're looking at with permanent tenancies, a mix, no permanent tenancies? Because some of them have like slots to park, and then there's parts that are trailer or mobile homes where they're like temporary but kind of there. So what's the mix? What does that look like for what you guys are looking for, and what have you been able to acquire so far?
Well, so all of ours, we don't have any mobile home parks on any of our parks. What they are is they are a slight mix. One of them we actually want to move completely to transient, but we need until we get to a place where we're seasoned enough, where everybody knows that we're there. We want to make sure that we're covering all of our expenses. So we have allowed a quarter of the sites to be for long-term people. But it's in a huge vacation destination. It's in Branson, Missouri.
Okay.
So we're about half a mile from the country strip, which has about 10 million visitors a year. So there's a large pool for tourists and RV camp visitors. So we actually think that we can get that one to a completely transient park, which it used to be at one point in time. It's been around since the 1950s.
Is that
But
like an
it's been
all-weather area where it's going to run all year, like a Four Seasons one, or does it have to shut down at some point during the year?
That one in particular stays open all year. It does get cold.
Yeah.
I witnessed that, because one thing I did when we acquired the park is like, I have time on my hand. I no longer work, right, in a W-2. And I said, I need to learn the ins and out of running a park. I want to know what it is. I want to deal with everything. I didn't know what I was getting into. So it was pretty wild, but it got cold. It got like negative,
like -12 at one point, wasn't
yeah,
it?
it was pretty bad. But so people live in it. And there's a portion of people that will stay on all year. And the main thing is to make sure that the park is, whatever portion they're living on, that we provide water, electric, and sewer. And it's very simple. So as far as the park, the management of it, it's pretty simple. I mean, once you're guests, we call them guests because they're not renters. That we're not having a signed lease with them. There's no leases involved. And so if once the guest pays for a spot, it stays there at a period of time, and it's 28 days in our area. That's the maximum, but then they renew. They do another period after that. So, but the majority of guests that are coming in are going to be for 3-4 days, as they're going to Branson to visit all the attractions and shows. And then there's some people that will come on vacation for a couple of weeks. So it's been very interesting on that side
Yeah.
to see.
How do you deal with like evictions or challenges of that sent when you look at it? You say, okay, what are you get a tow truck and pull them out of there, or how does that go? Have you had to deal with that yet?
We had a few, yeah, some
Yeah,
sailboats.
yeah, we had a few. When we first went into the park was actually pretty terrifying. It had been overrun by guests that had decided that they were going to take over and live there, and the current management just didn't care enough to stop it because the bills were being paid. So when we went in, we weren't having a lot of nightly rentals because people were afraid of the park.
Mm.
Um, so one of the first things we did was we kind of whispered into the maintenance man's ear that we were going to let the canine unit at the police department train on our facility. And that actually cleared out quite a few of them right away.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's like, okay,
Yeah.
let's well, they're just training, no big deal. It's like there was I can't remember, there was this corner
Yeah.
store that kept getting robbed. I think it was in Detroit. And they decided, oh, free coffee and donuts for any officer. And suddenly they weren't getting robbed so much.
No, it works
So,
though. I mean, I told
yeah.
them the canine unit was coming in and people cleared out that night, and that took care of a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And then when we actually moved into the park, the first thing we did was stop at the police station and bring treats for them, introduced ourselves to them because our park had become a thorn in their side. They'd been getting calls like 2 or 3 times a week. And we were like, we're with the new owners. We're going to completely reposition the park. We would love it if you guys would come and grab a cup of coffee, sit in our parking lot, use it as a speed trap if you need to. Like, we're totally open to you guys coming and just hanging out and using the restrooms, whatever you
Yeah.
need. And so they've really built up a presence at our park where they'll come in and they'll just do a drive-through and stop and say hello and show everybody that we're all friends, and really has changed the atmosphere of the park. A lot of the people that we don't want there have left, and now the people who are there feel very safe.
And we have great guests now, and
We have
like
wonderful
it just changes the whole attitude.
Yeah.
People care about their surroundings. So we did bring in two large dumpster, and it started with one, and then soon after it got filled. Everybody was like, we wrote a letter to them. We instructed them of what the park was going to do, and then we also started doing added value, right? So newer bathrooms, things that we have a capex for. So it's similar to a multifamily where you need to have a budget that you're going to improve so that your
Laundry rooms and garbage chutes and
so they cleaned up.
common roads, like common hallways and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
the leasing office. So
And
go ahead.
thinking out what we wanted, like making the rules very clear and putting them out to everybody, we kind of got rid of everybody that we don't want to be there, but the people who stayed really care about the park. So they are very active in making sure that, things are being picked up, that the place is clean, that the new guests that come in for a week or 2 weeks are feeling very welcome. They're such a great asset to have on our side because they invite them to barbecues at the community center. They just kind of make it really homey and cozy for everybody, and I think they really enjoy it.
Yep.
So when you look at, that asset class, as we were talking before the show, not terribly financeable, or can you go to the bank and say, I want to buy an RV park and show me the money?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, we thought that, like we're looking at these deals, right? And this one in particular, it was for sale for $3 million. And so I'm looking at it, it's like, wow, okay. So it had 68 pads, however, 51 of them were working. So definitely needs some renovation. And we're looking at it and we're saying, okay, well, how are we going to finance this? And we basically started talking negotiation with the owner through an agent, and we got 30% seller finance. So okay, with a very low interest rate, interest only for 5 years. Great. So now we have 30%. We turn around and we say, okay, well, we could bring investors in and then dilute ourselves. So we would own 100%, but we could bring in investors. And what we decided to do was to reach out within the community. We connected with an investor, and that investor said originally, like, oh, I'll support the 1.8 million that you need to get the deal, knowing that we had 540,000. We talked with him, and he says, well, you know what, a better idea is I'll introduce you to my bank, and I'll put in $350,000 for CapEx, and then the bank will loan you at the best rate possible, right? So preferred rate. So we ended up getting a loan from a local bank, up to 1.26 million.
Mhm.
We have a seller finance of 540,000. That covers the, and then we have the base loan. When they started at the cash out, we took the 350 and put it in there. So now every time we spend money in the park to upgrade it, we're using that as a CapEx. So we have not depleted the entire money at this point, but in our first year, that's what we're planning to improve the park. So it is an option to go to a bank and get financing. The problem we have these days is the interest rate is so high.
Correct.
So I think it's a balance of getting seller finance with potentially a loan, or bring in partners. Now, when we brought in that partner, great people, and we gave them a percentage, a preferred return on their 350, but we're also giving them 10% of the business lifetime. So
Yeah.
if they want, they could leave their money in there, or if they wanted, we could cash them out when we refinance. And we'll probably do a 2-phase refinancing, one for after 2 years, and then one after 5 years, where the seller finance portion comes through. So that's it is possible. Most of the parks have great NOI, and so net operating income is what you base yourself off of when you're acquiring these properties. And I think the key is to get to the right number and to negotiate. I mean, everything is a negotiation, and a lot of these sellers are mom and pop. They're in their late 60s and they're done. And unfortunately, their kids don't want the park and they just want the money. So it's a matter of blending that in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yep.
So
think-
when you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think that when you come across like with parks, it just seems like a lot of them are mom and pops, and this was their retirement plan. And so they wanted to build this park, and eventually they were either going to let their kids have it or they were going to sell it. And then they were going to go on and live the rest of their lives on the money that they used. So our second park actually ended up being 100% seller financed. And so she just gets a payment every month to live on. And
like a reverse,
yeah,
kind of like a reverse mortgage on what they've done. Because if you think about RV parks, you're probably not going to find like a 1912 or a 1920 RV park as the business. I don't think is even a business at that point yet. That's a campground.
Yeah.
A campground and an RV park. Well, yeah, they're both similar, but RV parks, the infrastructure that makes them an RV park is something that kind of started to sprout out in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So these things are first generation owners, maybe.
Yeah.
Where it's like,
Yeah,
we built
change-
this, we graded this ground and we put this thing together, and now we owe nothing on it because we've had it since 76 or something like that,
A
right?
lot of them are owned free and clear, and that's why you could do seller finance.
Yeah.
A lot of them, but there are also a lot of them that did not put enough into the park. So if they build them in the 70s and 80s, which is what we're looking at,
Yeah.
you have to watch out for old equipment, electric. After a while, you need to change those poles, the box people plug in their RVs.
Yeah.
And what's happening with the industry is it's changed a lot. So if you look at the original pads in the 50s, when you would go camping, you had a camper or a little trailer you would pull and pop up the tent. Now you're bringing in a 50-foot bus.
Motor coach bus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the motor coach comes in, right? So you have to have a good balance.
With sides.
Yeah, a lot of sides.
Yeah, slide outs. It's as wide as the whole lot. We stay at one that's just north of Winnipeg here that has campers in it, but is, I think, 90-80% campers, or not campers, RVs, residents, where they've got Christmas lights set up, and like, this is their property. They've made little fences, and you can tell that thing hasn't been moved. They store it all season there, and then in the next year they just open it, and it's like a mixed bag of like 1970 something prowler with like a 50-foot motor coach in the closer area. So it's very interesting. But yeah, you're right. Like, if you look at that smaller one and you look at the modern one, like some of those lots might not even be accommodating for
Yep.
some of the larger vehicles that people are pretty much driving a house around now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's what we're adjusting. So as we're expanding the park, in the first park that we bought, the Hideaway campground and RV retreat in Branson, that park has a lot of old spots, but there's also room to improve and add 40 new spots. And all of our new spots are going to be like
Space
wide.
now.
They're going to be much more comfortable for a wide, a larger RV
Yeah.
and a fifth wheel. There are some parks that are also like there's different class inside the park. So you're gonna have an A class where you would literally have a little casita, a little house, and you'll have your RV space and a barbecue area just for yourself. And those are class like level A properties. And then there's B where you're gonna have a little smaller space. And the majority of the parks in the US are, I would say, between a C and a B. So, but there are some really amazing, you can look them up online. There's some amazing parks where it becomes almost like a $250,000 lot that people will buy
Yeah.
and just basically buy it, but it's a lease. And then they bring an RV and that becomes their
It's got like a
permanent spot.
semi-permanent deck that's right where you pull the thing up, and then your ramp goes right down onto the
Yep,
steps right
concrete,
down to the thing. Yeah.
They have like little casitas on them where there's like an extra room there if you bring family out. It's amazing
Like
what
the
they
dining room that's not inside the RV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, these
So-
RVs are phenomenal. I didn't realize before we went into the RV space like
It's a
how
whole thing.
it's a huge thing. I didn't even realize. And so
Well,
now
I think it's growing. I
some
think
of
it's
them, I'm like,
growing too, because you're looking at it and you're saying, like you were saying, do I need a house? Am I going to an office? COVID changed the game, and like in some cases, you know, I was talking to someone who was a commercial broker. I think it was somewhere in California. He was talking about the sale. No, I think it might have been in Dallas, somewhere in Texas, where it was the Salesforce building. And the Salesforce is like a huge call center and, you know, support center for their thing. And they're moving out of it. They can't support the building as 60% of their staff just doesn't come to work anymore.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
you
actually
look
one
at
of our
that and you could just hang out in an RV and do your job for Salesforce. Most of our Canadian cell phone services at Rogers, which would be your I don't know, down there's
AT&T or something.
yeah, AT&T. Every time I call them, it sounds like they're in their kitchen, and they probably are. Like, why come to work when you could save an hour on both sides and you can do your job wherever your phone is, right? So,
Well, I think if you think about it though, like this new generation of people who are able to be transient, it is kind of with the way that rents and everything is costing, the way that the rates are and not being able to buy a house, to go and buy an RV and pay
on finance, it's
for
like, oh, are you gonna
$300
pay?
a month.
Yeah, but you could go crazy now. You could say, well, my rent's 1,700. I'm just gonna pay $1,700 a month to the company that sells me this motor coach, and now I've got a driving house, brand new,
Yeah,
warranty.
brand new and beautiful, and probably got more than you could get in an apartment. And they drive them across the country and you can work from anywhere. So you follow the 75-degree weather everywhere you want to go. It's kind of a beautiful lifestyle.
Just this caravan of motor coaches following the 75-degree weather.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the money part of it, because I know you guys are raising capital. You're trying to scale out. How much capital does this year look like it's going to need? And when you look at the partnerships you've had so far, how do you stay in communication with the investors you already have? Because transparency is key when dealing with you know, investors who've put hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars into your trust. So how much capital do you think this year is going to take? And then we'll touch on the second one.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're looking at is we were looking at raising originally for each project. And we came upon a conversation actually with Pace Morby, and we're going to be looking at operating a fund
Mhm.
for RV, specific for RV purchases, RV park purchases. And but if you look at the parks that we have now, so we have the first park with our original investor. We have a quarterly report that we provide him. We've been in touch with him. He's actually been to the park several times just to connect. He lives in the area, so that's fine. But if somebody was to invest from California into a park in, I don't know, Nashville, or for example, well, there's meetings to be had. You need to have what we do is we have the quarterly report, and all of our business is running off of software. So we're able to pull reports whenever we want. So that's one. On the other side of that is as far as raising money. So we looked at a deal and before the fund, right? So we're looking at deals right now. We have 6 in my inbox right now that I've been underwriting. So when I find the right deal, then I look at the partners and people that have expressed interest in investing with us, and I say, okay, well, for this deal, well, I think we could tackle it and get it with seller finance, and that's what we're focused on. But we will need roughly $200,000 or $300,000 for that park as CapEx, because we want to go in there. One, we want to have resources. If something happens, somehow, I don't know, the people don't pay or there's an issue, right? Want to have backup, because at that point, everything is rolling. So you have to pay your monthly note, right? Or your mortgage. So we do that, and we plan on having at least a $200,000 safe, like a pot of money that we can say, okay, this is just in case, and then the rest is for capital improvement, which is justified by looking at the entire park, and we put a plan together just like it would be for multifamily. I think that's what people are comparing it, the way we tackle it. They say, how do you underwrite your parks? Well, I used a multifamily template originally, but now I kind of made my own. But you still need to provide a good return on investment. You still need to cash flow, and then you need to make sure that you have an employee or a work camper that will basically be your employee on site to manage the park, because we're not park managers. We're investors that will control the asset. And so that's kind of the vision now. As far as the total fund, the cap on our fund has not been decided yet, but we're hovering around 10 million, because we want to be able to acquire several parks this year, and our goal is to have a good group of parks. I don't have an exact number at this time, but it's 20 after 3 years, where we could cash flow off of it and pay back our investors, and everybody would be getting a great return. So that's pretty much it.
I think right now what we're doing is we've been given this great opportunity with Pace Morby to actually come and learn how to build a fund with his team and himself and his lawyers, so that he can use it for his community to teach them how to do this themselves, so that they have questions. They can watch the process from beginning to end. And it's an amazing chance for us to go out and build our own fund and have his backing, with knowing that we're going to be doing it correctly. Because I know a lot of people who want to jump into that space, and you just don't know what you don't know until you're in the middle of it. So I think having somebody who knows how to run one, who's done this before, and who has all of the resources that he has to be able to sit down with us and walk us basically through it and say, use my team to do this so that we can teach other people how to do it, is going to be amazing for us. So I think that our first raise is probably going to be around 5 to 10 million. We're hoping to get it up and running in the next couple of months with him. We're actually setting up meetings right now so that we can go out and get that taken care of. And I'm super excited to have this opportunity to actually just learn in that space with people who have done this, and people who are experts in their field, with a team that knows what they're doing, and then being able to show others how it happens. So it's kind of a
Great opportunity.
it's an amazing opportunity for us.
Yeah,
So
you're
I'm not going to be doing this alone. And it's a nice thing that he does for his community, where he reaches out and says, let me help you do this. Let's help others.
Yeah, that's a big part of Sub 2. Now, there's a lot of people in the community already in Sub 2, but if for the people outside of the wall, outside of the community, what should they do? How do they find you so that they can start participating in this next scaling moment for you guys?
Well, I'm real big on Facebook. I'm Mychele and Patrick Bisson on Facebook. You can also find me at Mychele Bisson on Instagram, where I usually post things that we're doing and stuff that's been going on. You can also find links to some of our other properties, like our Scottsdale Resort. Both of our parks are on there, our beach houses, things like that. So those are some of the best places to get me because I'm pretty active on both of my accounts.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I usually respond pretty quickly. I don't usually like to leave people hanging because I like to make sure that everybody knows that I'm pretty accessible and easy to talk to. So
Yep.
And for the people listening, it's Mychele, Mychele. If you're trying to find it, if you're Googling it, good luck. It's not
Yeah.
spelled like you think it's going to be spelled. And Patrick, how do they find you? What should they do?
Yeah, so reach out to Mychele. That's the
Just
way to
funnel it
go.
to her. I'll be at the
Like,
park. I'll be at the golf course. I'll be out here.
you know me well. Now, the main thing is this, is that we are trying to streamline communication.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that nobody's left behind. So if somebody reaches out to us, they'll go through Mychele. We'll have a talk, and I do a lot of the underwriting, so I've been busy doing that. And yeah, golf is important. So you need to have a good work-life balance, everyone.
Yes.
I
That's
think one of the
important.
great things is people will reach out to me first, and then I kind of go through and tell them what we're doing. And then when they're like, okay, well, I have a park, or I want to talk about underwriting, or I need to see numbers, and then I tell them, okay, let's connect you with Patrick because he's better with those things. I'm better with the overall vision, and he is so good with all the integration that I can't even touch what he discusses with them. I just get so confused. So
You're good.
no, but it's such a great, I think it's kind of nice to have both of us because I know like there are things that I can add to the conversation that he doesn't think of, and there's things that he can add to the conversation that I don't think of. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 when you contact us. So
There you
Good.
go. Well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you guys stopping by. RV Parks is on the rise, and hopefully you can grab them up before everyone gets wise to the cash flow and the idea of these parks. So I appreciate you guys stopping by.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure
No
meeting.
problem.
Thanks.
Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.